Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am absolutely delighted to have in the studio James Hickman from Ecospend. James, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Toby. How are you?
Very good indeed, very good indeed. Listen, this is a subject which I always love talking about because I think it's a really interesting sector, and your business is also very, very interesting itself. We've got lots to tuck into. But before we get into the whole subject of open banking, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Ecospend?
Yeah, of course. So my name is James Hickman. I am the commercial lead at Ecospend. We are a open banking TPP, which means third-party provider, which means we are a platform that delivers both payments and data services relating to PSD2. We are FCA authorised, and we are directly connected to the entire UK bank ecosystem, so we don't have any third-party aggregators in the flow. And probably of real note for us at least, we were acquired by a global group called Trustly earlier this year, so we're now part of Trustly, but the brand originally was called Ecospend.
And that's a really interesting timing for it all, isn't it? Because we're sat here at the end of March, a period where we've had a 2023 so far of pretty strong volatility out there in the marketplace. I know you've written some things recently about all of that, which I'm sure we'll come on to a little bit later on as well. But a good time to be acquired as a business, right? Yeah,
very, very exciting for us. So I think whenever you have a new technology like this, there will always inevitably be some consolidation in the market, and perhaps this is an example of that happening. We're very grateful to now be part of Trustly. They are a global group. They are private equity backed by BlackRock and Nordic Capital. They have 800 members of staff. They're cash flow positive. They have great distribution across the US and Europe, and now we are powering their UK business, so they're using our technology in the UK, which is incredibly exciting for us, a real testament to the quality of our engineering team, and it also means that our future is very secure, and we're able to deliver, I think, a very competitive and comprehensive set of products when many of our competitors are VC backed, and perhaps that's a trickier place to be.
I think that's a very interesting point there about the market full stop. We're seeing some reticence in the VC world at the moment, the private equity world on top of that, the angel world, just waiting to see what plays out a little bit, which is starving a couple of places of the ability to push forward, to grow, or to seize opportunities. But you in that position, I guess, gives you a real competitive advantage.
Absolutely. I think the UK, London fintech scene is incredibly high-paced, it's very competitive, and therefore, whatever can assist your ability to succeed is very important. And I think businesses, particularly large businesses that we work with, big brands, they want to work with players that they know are going to be around for many years to come, and are very well backed and are able to offer global propositions and very compelling and comprehensive sets of products. So hopefully we tick all those boxes, and we're really excited about the year ahead.
You mentioned the sort of consolidation in the marketplace, and I think for much of 2022, maybe a little bit into 2021, there was a lot of big companies circling around the open banking sort of revolution as it was coming through. There was a lot of interest in businesses. I was speaking to various different people who were looking to be introduced to challenger-based open banking businesses. What do you think has made it such an attractive proposition for acquisition, for mergers, for?
I think it's the potential of the market opportunity. So it's important when you think about open banking, you actually define what it is. It really isn't necessarily one thing, it's two distinct capabilities. One is payments initiation, which is account-to-account payments, and allowing consumers to initiate a payment directly from their bank account, so driven completely by the fact that we all now bank on our smartphones. So it's a very secure, very cost-effective, very immediate form of making a payment. You typically use your biometric ID, so it almost completely removes the risk of fraud. And you can just imagine that any merchant looking to drive cost and efficiency savings, which is pretty much the entire UK economy right now, they are within our target market. So our main competitor are the big card schemes, because what we have proven with some of our big clients is that we are delivering material volumes for material organizations, which definitely show this thing is happening and it's here to stay. So very exciting. And then the other side of open banking is called AIS, Account Information Services, which allows us to gain access to a customer's bank account very much with their consent, and then we can provide products and services built on top of that information for organizations. So whether it's account verification, someone proving that this is my bank account, whether it's proving your credit worthiness, we're building some interesting credit products, whether it's replacing, I don't know, traditional manual checks that the mortgage industry might be running. There is a wealth of opportunity within that account information services side. So if you think about the two opportunities, to answer your question about why it's so attractive to VCs, you've got this huge market headroom for growth within the payment space. Yeah. Because look, your market is anyone who currently takes payments with the cards, driven by societal behavioral changes and the adoption of banking on a smartphone, and then that wealth of opportunity on the fact that you can build products and services on someone's live, up to the minute bank data to make, you know, compelling and creative products that ultimately help the consumer, but also help the organization looking to provide the service.
I'm always interested in the sort of adoption of various elements of technology, particularly in the financial services space, where you see high phases of growth and adoption and buzz, hype around a particular area, then a little plateau for a bit, and then another little growth. You see it most predominantly, I guess, in the crypto space, where at any given day there's volatility about how quickly it's going to be mainstream and then not, and then mainstream and then not. Open banking, you know, I think has probably gone through, you know, a couple of different iterations of growth and acceptance, and saying, right, this is inevitable, through to this might take a little bit more time, but this is going to be the staple for next year, etc., etc. Where do you think we are in that whole growth period at the moment?
It's a really, really good question. I think it's something that our industry, and I guess many fintechs, should really spend a lot of their time thinking about. When does that inflection point happen? And I think it's fair to say that in our industry it certainly hasn't happened yet. It might be a year plus away, and I think, to your point, it's pretty early in the cycle right now. So PSD2, which was the technology, the law that enabled the technology to sort of enable these solutions, came into effect in January 2018. So what, we're just over 5 years into that from launch. We had the pandemic in the middle of it, and stuff always takes a long time. I mean, people often talk about contactless. You know, we think nothing now of touching in and touching out of the tube, but that took quite a long time from the technology being...
It's just catching up in the States now, isn't it?
Exactly. So I think we should always expect things to take longer than they actually do. In terms of our sort of activities, you know, we work with big brands like ITV, like Rightmove, like Anglian Water. We're about to go live with Hargreaves Lansdown, which is the UK's #1 investment platform. We've also got a very important relationship with HMRC, which is...
I mean, this is huge, right?
Which is probably the thing which has certainly put us on the map. So we entered that tender it was the first commercial thing we did back at the end of 2020, which was our sort of commercial launch, and found ourselves in the finals against sort of global blue chip finance brands, and we had no idea that we were going to get any further, but we were obviously quite keen to be in the illustrious company of such people. And anyway, win it we did. We took our first payment on the 24th of March 2021, and now I think we've just passed £14 billion with a B, not an M, collected through our system. And in January just gone, we had the self-assessment season, and I think we did over 1 million transactions across our entire portfolio. We're live with over 100 different organisations, but including HMRC, we did over 1 million transactions, I think £2.5 billion. So whilst it's quite new, it's certainly happening. I don't think you can say, this is a flash in the pan, this hasn't delivered on its promises, it's going to go away. This is just the beginning. And to my point earlier, you know, this is a direct competitor charging towards anyone who offers card payments.
And we were talking before we came on air about the sort of rebranding of open banking, and you sort of touched on that and alluded to it a little bit beforehand, that open banking may be something there which, if you're a marketeer, you might have rethought the naming of it. Tell us a little bit about that concept, because it was really interesting. Yeah,
I mean, I think a lot of people in the industry think that open banking perhaps isn't the best name for what it is we do, when open in connection with one's finances isn't necessarily what one wants to think about. But fundamentally it is split between those two key things. One is account-to-account payment, so we should think about that as a unique proposition, enabling a payment directly using an API from your bank account to another API at another bank account. So immediate, 2 trusted parties, very secure, very cost effective, very efficient, no data entry required. So for example, with HMRC, they typically have, I think, a couple of % of all their payments go into suspense accounts where someone has incorrectly entered their reference number. We're happy to say that we've seen a 100% success rate with all HMRC payments. So just the cost saving alone of not having to employ people to manually repatriate that money is inestimable. From a customer service point of view, we were prepared, as a small fintech, we were preparing ourselves for a deluge of customer service inquiries. You can imagine the HMRC opportunity is pretty much the entire UK population. Yeah. I'm happy to say that in January or something we had about 7 customer service inquiries, all from people just interested. Yeah, just people interested to know a little bit more about it. No complaints. So from our side, I'm sure on the HMRC side there might have been the odd call, but from our side we literally just saw this thing work. So it's again very quick, very efficient, very secure, and very cost effective when you compare it with your typical cost of cards. And then to your point about the state of the economy today, if I'm a small business and I'm paying 1.5 or 2% for my provision of card payment services, that's like having an additional 1.5 or 2% on my income tax or my corporation tax. So who wouldn't want to save that money? So I think we're pushing on an open door in terms of the ubiquity and the potential of this solution, very much driven by the fact that people bank on a smartphone now. So it's an intuitive thing. People just use it. They don't know about open banking or PSD2 or any of this fintech stuff. They just know that they choose their bank, they initiate their banking app, typically using their Face ID, and then they just press pay. Everything's pre-populated, everything's pre-filled. There's no room for error. And it's very slick, and also it's you get to see your bank balance before you make a payment. There are some real benefits in this. In terms of that element of open banking, account-to-account payments has huge potential, very exciting. As I mentioned, we're about to go live with Hargreaves Lansdown, the UK's #1 investment platform. If they put a foot into this, then I'm sure lots of other people will as well.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think the exciting thing is just the absolute immense scale that you've got potential-wise in terms of what you can do with it. But I'm interested to say you mentioned, for everyone from HMRC and Hargreaves Lansdown through to the mom and pop sort of storefronts there in terms of the difference it can make. So where do you see the most interesting sectors for this movement to positively impact, and what benefits do you think they'll see from it?
It's a really good question, and I think I could start by just saying the application for this is completely ubiquitous, because it is anyone who really collects payments from customers. Drilling down a little bit, today it's working really well with bill payments. So we work with some utility companies, including Anglian Water, for example, HMRC, topping up your wealth tech platform with Hargreaves Lansdown, paying off a bill, topping up a digital wallet on your wealth tech side. So there are some obvious applications for this where it's working really well. I think slightly slower to catch up is the sort of quick, speed. If I'm going into my Sainsbury's local on a Friday night to buy my bottle of wine, I'm very happy to use my Apple Pay just to go in and out. So it's not necessarily something that is going to replace that side of things. But if I'm topping up a wallet, paying off a bill, making a retrospective payment, that's absolutely in the sweet spot for us today. And I think we're proving, along with some of our peers in the market, that this is coming.
I've often speak on this show about the sort of things which really drive adoption in the industry. You wrote a piece recently about the volatility from SVB, from Credit Suisse. You talked about the inflation still existing at 10.4% or what have you. And within all of that, you're looking at products that can effectively drive productivity, or it's going to manage cost, or it's going to increase and optimize systems and processes for people, or it's going to make it easier for people to use. And I think you probably tick a few of those boxes, right?
Absolutely. I think taking the first one, cost, I mean, in the high inflationary, high interest rate world we're in now, margin is everything. If I'm a business with a 3-4% margin and I can reduce my transaction fees from 1% of revenues to a fraction of that, then that is a material increase in my margin. So I think who wouldn't today want a solution that saves them money? But I mean, importantly, it's not just about bringing in something to drive cost that isn't going to get used. I mean, it's a perfect alignment of stars in that consumers are becoming increasingly happy to use these types of services. The smartphone.
Not even happy, but just demanding of using that.
Yeah, and they're demanding, or in a way, they're just it's just intuitive.
Yeah.
And also with card payments, you'll know about secure customer authentication, SCA, that recently came in, which means when we make payments online, we have to do that two-factor authentication with a one-time passcode that gets sent to our phone. Again, it's just another hurdle in the process.
It's just removing the friction from the process, which we come to expect from the phone.
Absolutely.
Like, you've got instant gratification and instant expectation, and I think.
So you sort of tick the cost box, you've ticked the consumer behaviour box. You're then looking at, well, does this actually help my business processes, as you suggested? And as we've seen, this enables accounting systems to reconcile payments far more effectively and efficiently than perhaps before. There is a lot less room for error, a lot less room for payments to end up in the wrong account. So you're then bringing in a much seamless and efficient form of operating your sort of revenues from these types of transactions. So yes, it's a very intuitive, efficiency-driving, cost-saving set of set of benefits, which I think probably point towards this being a good idea.
Yeah, well, I'm on board, but many aren't so far. As you said, look, it's scale of market as opposed to size of market at the moment. So we know what the opportunity is. And I think in January, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 7 million people using it on that basis.
I think those are the numbers published by the industry regulator, the OBIE. So clearly this is happening. It's happening probably a little bit more slowly than one would hope, because things always do take longer.
But talk to me about why that is, because with obstacles to growth, this is such a no-brainer. I understand that not everyone had a mobile phone on day one because of cost reasons, and then just actually moving away from landlines, etc. I mean, I literally last week got rid of my landline finally. I'm probably the only person in the UK who still had one on a day-to-day basis. It's amazing how long it takes for various bits and pieces to evolve. So what do you think the obstacles the industry needs to remove, or need to be removed, that allow the natural accession of this as just a given? Yeah,
I think it's the education and awareness piece first and foremost. It's a bit like that Bill Gates quote where he said something like, we overestimate the change we expect to happen in 2 years, but we underestimate the change that happens in 10. And I think we're still at the very beginning of this cycle. There are still
when did it start?
Well, 2018, so 5 years in, but that was from a standing start. And we had the pandemic in the middle. And I think you've got some very large incumbents who are heavily incentivized for this not to happen quickly. And you are, it's a fairly sort of niche element to people's priorities and activities, I suppose. So if you're a business looking at your list of priorities for the next 12 months, where does this figure in terms, clearly it's important, but there might. So I think it's just about washing through the education, the awareness, the use cases, getting people to become more familiar with this. The test for ubiquity in my mind is, would your mum be using this? And I think my mum's a bit a way away so far, but it's amazing that with the self-assessment season we had in January, how many people we've met who we're talking to who have experienced using our system with HMRC, for example. So I think it's a question of education, awareness, time, building more use cases, and it's a bit, as you said, it sort of goes plateaus, and then you get a jump up, and then so I think it's a case of just doing what we're doing, going through the drills, getting more brands on board, getting some more use cases live, and I think we will see this begin to happen.
You mentioned there about powerful incumbents, which is so often the sort of ball and chain to innovation in a sector. And if I look at when 10 years ago when we were talking about the fintech revolution, it was the fintechs versus the banks, and then the banks started to think, right, okay, this is a threat to us, a material threat, so we'll innovate, we'll either build our own or create innovation labs that brings the hottest new thinkers into their world, so to speak. What do you see happening in that sort of space? How can the incumbents slow this down? or how do they be moved aside? More to the point.
I think it's evolutionary market forces will always win out. I mean, to your landline point, I got rid of my landline as well the other day. So
it felt very weird.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. You know, you don't need it. But having a piece of plastic with a 16-digit card number on it with an expiry date that's eminently hackable. You know, if the world was launching a new payment system today that was going to have as much ubiquity, I don't think they would be looking at releasing a similar concept to that. So.
Certainly wouldn't be the checkbook.
No, it wouldn't be the checkbook. So there is a groundswell. Inevitably, it's going to take a while, but it will happen. Yeah. And just a little bit like getting rid of the landline, you know, you're just cutting out links in the chain. So you don't need that piece of plastic between your service provider and your bank account anymore. You can just have a direct API to API connection, which is completely secure, immediate, and very efficient. So it's part of the evolutionary sort of innovative process, isn't it?
And I think to look at the landline metaphor, just to sort of really milk it a little bit further, you know, we're still paying to BT, and they've evolved into Wi-Fi, and they've evolved into to BT Sport and all this sort of thing alongside that as well. And I guess that's how things evolve as an industry alongside that. You know, it's either evolve or die effectively, right? Absolutely.
I think it's about remaining meaningful and relevant to your consumers, and I guess many banks and financial services brands are trying to be more than just
evolve. It's evolved into something that is much more fit to type, much less monopoly in terms of how it can move further forward, and it creates a lot of opportunity. What I love about this industry is the entrepreneurial aspect of it, the innovation aspect of it, and the ability to say, look, I think the days of the legacy, enterprise-based business is long gone. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to come up there, and I think part of the whole digital experience is being able to tailor things to you and your demands and your needs and how you want to have things through, have effectively interoperable systems that allow people to choose the way they want to bank, choose the way they want to spend, choose the way they want to receive a payment. And that's quite exciting for me.
Yeah, very exciting. I think this absolutely enables that consumer and business choice. If you're a sole trader today, there are 3 ways to collect money, and all of them are slightly flawed. One is cash. Cash is pretty much disappearing. One is cards, very expensive, quite clunky. Often you need an additional piece of plastic. And the third one is a manual bank transfer, and people often forget to make a manual bank transfer. So that's, again, 3 fairly flawed processes, and you can enable a very slick, very immediate, very efficient way of making a payment direct from a customer's smartphone straight to yours. So absolutely, it's just bringing that level of choice, and we're not talking about total cannibalization. It's just providing alternative choices to customers and to businesses to enable the business. I don't think we're going to be challenging American Express anytime soon, but you can see the direction of travel.
And you can also see how they evolve as well. It's it's forced innovation from their side to happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
You touched a lot so far on PSD2, but we know that PSD3 is coming alongside that as well. Talk to us about what that means and the implications.
I can't say I'm a great expert on PSD3, but it allows a customer to effectively have total visibility on their financial life, whether it's from their current account to their mortgage, to their insurance policies, to their pension, and then make that available to organisations that can offer them hyper-personalised products and services tailored to their data, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So if I'm a wealth management provider, I could effectively have visibility on someone's current account. I could see what type of financial structure they have around their life, and then I could offer them augmented advisory services. But I would say it's kind of at the nascency of its life form, and therefore what we should do is just focus on delivering kind of the fundamentals of PSD2. I feel like there's a lot of headroom just to firstly build on the account-to-account payments concept and just make sure that that gets as widely adopted as possible. And then on the account information services side, there's a wealth of opportunity that you could offer to customers based on their live banking history, and I think those are the two areas of focus for us today. PSD3 is perhaps a little bit further down the track.
So if we look at this evolution that we're talking about and the adoption that we talk about, we're shooting this in the last week of Q1 of the year. Just about to move into April. There's 9 months of 2023 left to go. This will probably come out, a couple of, another few weeks before we actually release the episode itself. But as we sit here today, what do you think it will look like by the end of 2023?
What I'm hoping is that we will have seen some significant steps forward in terms of large organisations embracing this, driving it forward, promoting it, understanding the benefits, and then communicating those benefits to the wider ecosystem. Because as we all know, most organisations are cautious, so they like to see that groundswell of support. They like to know that they're not doing this in isolation. So what I'm really hoping is that we will continue to gain traction with other public sector departments, other large financial services brands that are increasingly adopting this, happy to talk about it publicly, that sort of starts bringing more support from across the wider industry. So I think we're not going to see that sort of big moment where it just explodes in the next 9 months, but I think what we will see is steady and continuous adoption, improvement, case studies being talked about, so that by the time we get into Q1 of next year, I think we'll be in a very strong position to maybe see that inflection point happen within the following 12 months. Yeah,
I'd agree with that from what I've been hearing from other sources as well. Let's look at that with regards to your company lens on it all. What does the next 12 months look like for you guys?
Well, we feel very lucky to be in the position with Trustly, so we are now working very hard with them to integrate, to develop the most compelling set of competitive and comprehensive products for the market, because we believe that combined we have a very good solution or set of solutions. So we're integrating, we are preparing for that big moment, making sure that we are highly visible, perceived as one of the leading brands in the UK market that does what we do. And I think just we want to be part of the education process. We want to be at the forefront of driving the awareness that this actually provides a very material opportunity for many, many different organisations across lots of different industry verticals.
And I guess, does that collaboration with Trustly really change the game for you over the course of this year?
I think it has. I mean, we moved from that kind of startup mindset where we were backed by our founders and investors to now we're part of a global group. And I think, again, it goes back to the earlier point. If I'm a large organisation looking to engage with a fintech, I think I'd probably like to know that fintech is both global and very secure and able to deliver, that sort of the quality and length of relationship that I'm looking for. So I think we're in we are transitioning from that kind of previous world into this new world of being much more sort of well-founded.
Well, it's a brave new world. Sounds exciting for you guys. Tell me who should be reaching out to you. I mean, you've mentioned just about everyone in the world that you can help.
Have I?
But who should be reaching out to you guys to find out a little bit more? Who are the types of clientele that can be listening to this at home and saying, actually, that this is a business that can really help me and drive us further forward? I
mean, we love hearing from anyone. There is, as I mentioned, real ubiquity across the opportunity. I would say, though, that anyone within the sort of financial services space, anyone who has account top-up or wallet top-up requirements, anyone who has exorbitant transaction fees on their cards, anyone that wants to learn something about a new technology, I mean, we'd be delighted to talk to them. So I think there is wide potential for this across so many different industries. So I think we'll talk to anyone.
Fantastic. And what's the best way for people here who are listening to this, who say, I need to speak to James now? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, they can email me or go to ecospend.com or trustly.com and send in a request, or find me on LinkedIn, perhaps.
Perfect. James, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming
Thank
in.
you very much, Toby.
And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.